Hello, I'm Benjamin Cummings. We're here today with Ross Riskin from the American Institute of Certified College Financial Consultants. Good to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me, Benjamin. Great to be here.
So we want to talk today about 529 plans. A lot of people see this as an ideal savings vehicle for a lot of people. Do you view 529 plans as a one-size-fits-all?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really don't view anything as a one-size-fits-all. I know in the times we are now, everybody's kind of looking for that one product or one funding vehicle to use, but they definitely have a lot of benefits for them. So especially have a wide range of benefits depending on what types of individuals or clients are looking at investing in them. So one major benefit are there are no income or AGI limitations, so your higher income, high net worth individuals can actually use this as a nice funding vehicle. There are definitely other benefits associated from a tax planning perspective. So some states provide income tax benefits for contributions into the plan, and probably the most widely known thing about these plans is the assets inside them grow tax deferred and eventually tax free if when distributions are taken, they're used for qualified higher education expenses. So they're definitely a great vehicle for that. I have had some hesitation from clients that I've talked to that said, oh, well, what if my son or daughter doesn't go to school, or what if they qualify for scholarships? What do you do in that event? But it's always important to note you can always get the money back out. You may not benefit from those tax breaks the tax incentives that I just mentioned, but you can always get that money back out. Some people think it's kind of goes into a black box and you can never get it back out if you don't use it for college expenses. Yeah.
That's good to know. Now, I've heard there's different types, including this prepaid tuition plan. What are your thoughts on prepaid tuition plans?
Yeah, normally what I deal with most are the college savings plans. So you're right, 529, the qualified tuition program is two different types, the savings plan and the prepaid tuition plan. So I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the prepaid plans. They do have some benefits, and one of the biggest ones is people get to kind of lock in tuition, almost like an inflation hedge is what they're doing. But you really got to read the fine print on those, because there may be some flexibility issues if your son or daughter doesn't go to that school that it applies to in the state. Maybe they don't get into that school. And it's not necessarily a one-for-one hedge against inflation on that. So you can be buying credit hours, and every plan is a little different. So it's important really to read the fine print depending on what state prepaid tuition plan you're looking at.
That's good to know. So it sounds like college savings plans tend to be a better fit for most people.
Yeah, I would say that, because you just have a lot more flexibility with them, and there's more options out there, and so that's always a great thing. I'm a proponent of having options when looking at choosing a vehicle to save for.
No, that's a great point. Now, you mentioned earlier about state income tax deduction. Some states give breaks. What if a client lives in a state that doesn't give an income tax deduction? Do 529 still make sense?
Yeah, that's a great point. They definitely do make sense, even in those circumstances. A couple of things I look at when looking at different 529 plans. Tax efficiency is definitely one of them, but for those instances where you can't get the state income tax deduction, we still want to be looking at other things, such as investment flexibility. So what types of investment options do we have? And really the fee structure of plans, because I've seen in certain circumstances, there are plans that may tout a state income tax benefit for putting money in, but the fees on the plan erode that benefit over time if the money's held in there for longer than a couple of years. So there are other facets to look at other than just, am I getting an immediate state tax break from it? Another thing I'll mention on the state tax break side, so even those states that do provide tax incentives for contributions in, we want to be looking at the state tax recapture provisions, because some states, if a parent goes in and says, hey, I don't need to use this money for my son or for my daughter for college, but I still want to take it out, you may actually have to pay back that state tax deduction or a credit that you received on the front end to that state. So it's important to be aware of those.
That's very good to know. How common are those recapture provisions?
Yeah, it's actually funny. Most states that provide an income tax deduction do have a recapture provision. So I happen to live in Connecticut where there isn't one, so that's actually beneficial for some people. But most states do have some sort of provision.
Okay, that's very good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you for this recap on 529s today.
No problem.